Hello and welcome to today's event, How to Migrate from Adobe AEM to CrafterCMS. My name is Russ Danner and I will be your host and presenter for today. Now, before we get started, a bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions throughout the event today, please ask them in the Q&A area and we'll take as many as we can at the conclusion of the presentation. Now, we're going to start off today by talking about why people are migrating from AEM to CrafterCMS. I'll cover what we've heard from users, prospects, and customers, and then we'll talk about how CrafterCMS helps in these areas. After that, I'm going to demonstrate a few key capabilities in CrafterCMS, and then we'll cover some resources that you can leverage while taking the next steps towards a migration. After that, we'll take some Q&A before we wrap up. So let's talk about what we're hearing and why people are migrating away from AEM to CrafterCMS. And of course, everyone has their own reasons. It could be related to technology, support, or costs. On that note, AEM is a suite-based product. It's a closed source platform, and it's one of the more expensive solutions in the market, which motivates a lot of customers to reach out to us looking for a more cost-effective and open solution. Now, with that said, let's focus on some of the common technical reasons why companies are looking to make the switch. And the first thing that we hear in the technical space is that organizations want a more modern, lightweight architecture. From a technology perspective, while AEM is architected to be modular with technologies like OSGI, it remains very complex. Customers tell us that the complexity is actually quite crushing. This technology is much older and much more difficult to work with. And as a result, this complexity drives up development and deployment costs as well as consulting fees. Another comment that we hear is that users want better headless support. And when we dig into this a little bit, we really learn that the complaint is organized more around the idea that AEM was born as a headed system with headed use cases in mind. And then API support was added as an afterthought. And in today's digital experience, API-backed content is the rule rather than the exception. And so you really need a system that either prioritizes both headed and headless use cases at the same level with the same level of sophistication, flexibility, maturity, and so on, or you need the API-first support to take the primary role. And in AEM, the legacy nature of that platform really drives that picture. Another topic that we hear about is composability. Okay, AEM supports plugins and extensions, but it's important to note that AEM's plugin system is really more of a walled garden, and that plugins only scratch the surface of what composability is. Further, it's important to understand that AEM is a suite. So it wants to be a single platform and a single vendor. And composability, this idea that you could get packaged capabilities from different vendors and bring them together, it's just not part of the DNA of AEM. And so anybody who wants to leverage that kind of architecture is just not going to find a good fit with the AEM platform. Another topic that comes up a lot is core CMS capabilities. So for example, let's talk about versioning. That's a thing that comes up quite a bit. Well, AEM has versioning, but it's based on the JCR, or the Java Content Repository. And the JCR was introduced in 2002. It's more than 20 years old, and it's quite stagnant at this point. While the JCR carries a standards-based moniker, only a tiny few number of systems actually have adopted that standard, with AEM being the largest implementer. And customers want a more standard-based repository with a lot of adoption and a lot of out-of-the-box integration with a real-world ecosystem. Another core CMS capability that brings AEM customers to CrafterCMS is the lack of support for dev content ops, which is essentially the ability to move content and code easily between environments. The JCR that AEM relies on does not have great support for this, and as a result, implementing this kind of capability requires a lot of effort and compromise, and those kinds of compromises really drive a lot more time in the development and the deployment and release cycles, and forces authors to have code freezes for long periods of time. So deploying new software is difficult because of the lack of support for dev content ops in these environments. Okay, now let's dive into how Crafter can help with these items. And here's our first one, architecture. One of the challenges with AEM is scaling the architecture. AEM's delivery tier is dependent on the JCR repository, and below that, NoSQL technology. AEM is scaled by scaling the application and the database tiers. Typically, authoring and delivery live on the same replicated data layer. This has several disadvantages. For one, the architecture is quite complex because it relies on scaling and connecting the database tiers. Another issue with the architecture is that it often puts authoring related code out on the delivery tier, which gives a larger attack surface from a security perspective. And authoring and delivery platforms will have the same content replicated across tiers, which is a major risk if you're trying to keep private content or work in progress private, because it's going to be replicated to the delivery tier whether it's ready to go live or not. And what separates it from being live is really just a piece of metadata, which in many use cases is not sufficient to call the content secure. So AEM, in a sense, is much more like the traditional decoupled solution that we see in the middle of this diagram here. CrafterCMS's architecture is pictured on the right and is a fully decoupled platform. Authoring and delivery are completely separate infrastructure with a publishing mechanism between them. Further, there is no database tier in the delivery system. CrafterCMS uses disk and S3 storage and OpenSearch indexes on the delivery tier as the persistence. To scale your delivery tier, you simply scale the application tier. It's that simple. This allows the authoring and delivery tier to be scaled independently and both very efficiently. In addition to being fully decoupled and thus more secure and scalable, CrafterCMS has a rich and more modern Java Spring-based stack that supports both server-side and client-side rendering, and lets the development teams work in the front-end framework of their choice. They choose the technology that fits their use case and their team's skill set. Better headless support is also a topic that comes up when discussing AEM migrations to CrafterCMS. Well, CrafterCMS provides a really wide range of powerful headless APIs for both authoring and delivery concerns. We have out-of-the-box REST APIs that you can use with no coding or configuration required. We also have a powerful GraphQL API that gives you the ability to create custom endpoints and control the shape of your response without requiring any code at all. And we give you the ability to script your own APIs on top of our services so that you can integrate custom and external services or fully control the shape of your APIs and responses. And this capability is key to migrations because it can be used to completely replicate the shape of the APIs that your existing applications and sites and other projects are relying on today, but in CrafterCMS. Meaning that you will not have to modify the end applications at all in order to port to CrafterCMS. You'll simply have to migrate the content into CrafterCMS and then create the facade for the environment in this layer right here. Now, here's a big topic, composability. Composability is a buzzword in the industry right now, and nearly every vendor has some angle on how they fit into the composable story. And that's fair. Supporting the ability to plug in new capabilities into your platform with standardization around how capabilities interact does make your platform composable. To this extent, AEM and other platforms that support plugins and have a platform for and around plugins can claim to be composable. However, it's important to remember that AEM is a suite-based platform. So while there is a plugin capability inside the platform, the solution itself is a suite-based product that is quite monolithic in the way that it is packaged and sold. Composability is not part of the DNA of the product or the way that the product is sold. This really means that AEM is only a good fit where composability is not the objective. You're only going to be successful with AEM if you want a single vendor and a single platform for all of your digital marketing needs. And that's a good thing for organizations where that's the key objective. Then they're going to be very successful with AEM. But a lot of organizations start there. They think that they want that because it's going to be easy, and they often will migrate away from that kind of thinking as they find out that it's difficult to adapt to changing business needs when you've got a single vendor with a single control, and where that kind of composable mindset and capability is not really truly part of the product, right? Where you have to kind of work to plug in another vendor because it's something that's not expected and it's not wanted and it's not welcome. Now, for many years, the software industry has been breaking down these kind of products and monoliths into microservices or mock architectures. This really was the genesis of headless CMS. Headless architecture offered more flexibility and allowed best of breed solutions to thrive in the market. All right, so this is definitely anti-suite kind of thinking. The issue with the microservices architecture is that it introduces additional complexity and a lot of integration. To defend against this, the composable architecture was conceived. In composable systems, capabilities are much more than just APIs that can be managed and integrated. They are self-contained, discoverable, orchestrated units that can be combined and recombined without a lot of integration. Here we can see CrafterCMS in the context of a composable DXP. Unlike AEM, its central role is CMS and CMS alone. There are many other concerns and capabilities required by a digital experience platform or DXP, but CrafterCMS does not serve these roles in the system. Importantly, CrafterCMS can and does have capabilities to support many of these common needs out of the box. But because of CrafterCMS's modern architecture, it plugs into a composable DXP naturally, giving you much more freedom and flexibility to fashion a solution that meets your needs exactly with the vendors of your choosing for any given need. Now, switching gears to another topic that we hear about, which is CICD and the pain points associated with versioning and multiple environments. If you have done any amount of development, you have multiple environments. CMS administrators need the ability to easily move code and content between these environments. But because AEM is based on the JCR repository and ultimately NoSQL backends, this is difficult. By contrast, CrafterCMS is Git-based. Git underpins our content store, our versioning mechanics, and our support for CI/CD processes and moving content and code between environments. Authors use Crafter Studio to edit content and manage that content. Behind the scenes and invisible to them, Git is used to capture every single change in a time machine-like versioning history. Developers can use their favorite tools directly against Git repositories linked with the system to create and test new functionality. Our development and publishing system leverages Git to detect and distribute changes approved in the authoring system to delivery servers anywhere in the world so that content can be consumed by end users. And operations using standard CI/CD tools and mechanics can move content back to lower environments to support the development and testing process, and code forward to facilitate releases and deployments of new functionality. We call this frictionless collaboration between authors, developers, and operations dev content ops. So we can see here that Crafter CMS as a modern open source headless plus CMS with equal support for both headless use cases and headed use cases is a perfect fit for companies that are looking for that more modern, more open solution that is more cost effective, has a better support for core repository capabilities, better support for pure headless capabilities, and is going to support and facilitate faster time to market with new features and capabilities and releases through that rich support for dev content ops. Now let's jump into a quick demo. I just want you to see a couple key capabilities inside Crafter CMS so that you have a sense of what it is. And then we're going to jump out and talk about some additional resources for your migration. So the first thing we're going to do is log into Crafter Studio. And here you can see I have a variety of projects and they range in terms of type of use case, like this Alexa blueprint here. They also range in types of frameworks. We have Next, we have React, we have Angular, Vue, Bootstrap, and a number of other frameworks. Now, if I click on this Alexa blueprint here, you can see that this is a pure headless use case. There are no pages here. These are facts. I can use the Alexa emulator in the preview area, or I can use the fact browser to browse facts and edit them. So I'm not editing a web page here. I'm just editing the fact objects that can be respond in that Alexa skill. All right, now let's jump back out to the projects window, and we're going to go to this project that I've set up for the webinar called Webinar. Okay, you can see here, now we're looking at a more traditional site. This is what we call in-context preview. As I scroll down through the site here, you can see it's a beautiful parallax style website. And you can see that in preview, it functions normally. It's going to work exactly like a live site, except it's in this safe authoring sandbox here where everything's functional, but I can make changes to it. Those changes are tracked and versioned for me automatically, and I can work. And here you can see we can open up the left-hand toolbar and see the information architecture. Now, if I want to make edits to content, I can go up to the right-hand corner here and turn on this pencil, and you can see this turns on editing tools. And you can see as I mouse over the site experience, different copy and so on highlights. And you can see I can also pick up images off my desktop, for example, and drag those and just drop them where they go. So we're dropping a video here. We upload that video, and we're immediately playing the video. So you can see here we're going to convert this fitness site to a AR/VR headset product site. Now let's change some copy. So I just click on the copy and I change it. And you can see I'm editing directly in my styles, directly on the canvas. And this is what we talked about where authors can truly touch what they're editing. They can see how it's going to kern. They can see exactly how it looks while they're editing it. It just feels natural. We'll do another example up here. We'll change the company name to Real Vision X. All right. All right. Now let's scroll down a little bit. And we've got another area here. Now you can see here again the title here. I'm editing just this copy, and it's the style sheet and the site that's controlling the styles in this area. Let's make a little correction here. Let's make this next generation. Sounds a little bit better. Now, if we click on this area, you can see it's a rich text editor. And so I want to change the copy here, but I need some help. So let's go to ChatGPT. We'll put in a query here. Wait for a response. Okay, let's copy that. And now we can click in, select it, and paste it. And you can see, again, that was very easy to create some copy and get some help. All right, let's change the image here. Now you can see instead of dragging off my desktop, I'm going to search a library of images, a little bit of digital asset management light there, and just drop that headset image in. Now let's change this figure here, and we'll use some of the rich text editor features. So we'll highlight here and make it bold, and we'll change the color to, let's say, red, for example. And when we click out, that's what it looks like. And there we go, our change is made. Now again, in the background, we're versioning everything. So if there's something that you do that you don't like, you can always revert that change. Now, let's turn off the editing functionality because I want to show you something. So now the editing functionality is turned off, and we're going to scroll down, and you can see here that these pictures here, they have a little hover element. And this can make editing difficult because they're sort of in the way. I can't drag pictures or edit copy, or I have to kind of struggle to get to both. But when I turn on the editing features, I can give my site and my screens and so on cues so that they can unfurl themselves in a way that makes them easy to edit. You can see how these expand here. So now we're going to edit this section here. We'll change it to revolutionize our industry, and let's just drag some graphics off our desktop here. And you can see it's very easy to upload a picture for engineering. And then let's do some entertainment here. And then we'll get a little bit of design. And now let's change these labels as well. All right. Again, I'm working directly with the canvas, working with the clay, so to speak. And this is really important. It really helps an author to be productive when there's no abstraction. A form creates abstraction. Even if I'm editing and I see an instant preview alongside of what I'm doing, the visual abstraction where I've got to work in one area and then wait for it to update in another creates a little bit of a dissonance. All right, now let's see how it looks when the editing tools are off. You can see, yep, those hovers look good. Okay, great. Now, maybe I don't like where the position of these tiles are. And you can see here now, this whole page is constructed out of components, including these tiles. So like, for example, I'm going to pick up this entertainment tile and just drop it into the middle. And there it is, it's moved. Now to illustrate this idea of drag and drop editing a little bit more, let's go to this landing page here. And you can see we've already got kind of a banner and a footer set up for us. And we're going to drag onto the screen a rich text editor. So let's go ahead and drop that. And you can see it puts a component out there on the screen for us with a default set of content. Let's go to ChatGPT and generate a lead-in for this, what is basically a webinar landing page. Okay. Now let's get the ChatGPT to update this. And, so we're going to iterate a little bit with ChatGPT and OpenAI. Okay. Yep. I like this a little bit better. So let's copy this. Okay. And then we just click on the content and then paste it. And there's our copy. Now you can see it reaches from side to side. And I don't think that's particularly attractive. So let's get a design element called paper. You can see I can drop it above or below the text. Let's drop it above. And what I like about this is it makes the area smaller and it goes up into the banner image. You can see when I drag the copy in there, it looks better. I think we could do even better than this. So let's go ahead and get a title with 2 columns and drop that. And you can see that adds a title for us and 2 drop zones. Let's pick up the text and drop it into one of those columns. Okay, so you can see now I'm really starting to assemble the page here. Let's go ahead and add a title. All right. Now we're going to add a lead form. Of course, we want people to sign up and give us a lead here. So I've added the HubSpot lead form, and now I'm going to choose the form that I want from HubSpot. So you can see an integration here where I've got forms in HubSpot. I just picked the one that I want in the editor here, and now I can see that form and potentially even interact with it right here. All right. Now you can see here I've got an image, and you can see that as I hover over these areas, this is another thing I want to show you, is that I've got these little colors that correspond to the colors in the components area to show me where things can be dropped. And so when I grab this paper, for example, and I try to drop that, you can see only a few drop zones allow me to drop that. And so I can very visually see what components can go where. So for example, I can see that this image goes here. Now we'll go ahead and go over to assets, and we're going to find an asset that works well for our page here. Let's look up retail. So now we just drop that asset over top of the placeholder, and now we've got a beautiful image there. And here you can see a little bit more of the library. It's sort of a paginated list of images that we can use search to find things in. Now we're going to go back to components, and we're going to drag one more component onto the page, which is a featured blog article. This is a targeted component, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about that in just a second. So what we're going to do before we get into that is we're just going to reorganize the page a little bit. I want you to see that we can lay things out however we like, and we can change our minds and really work through the design. And once we get to something we like, we can keep it. Now, let's take a look at this featured blog article here. And to do that, let's open up the information architecture on the left-hand side. And you can see here that we've got individual blog articles, and I can get to the articles that way. But I can also click on the item right on the screen and click the pencil. And this opens a new view that we haven't seen yet, which is called the form view. Now, we've been talking a lot about visual editing, but here we see there's a form view where we have all of the fields, all the structured content behind the blog article, including this taxonomy and this other metadata here that we're going to use to drive targeting. And this is where forms are really valuable because they capture non-visual content. And then I can use that to target the content. So let's choose the audience for design. And here you can see a featured blog article on AR for design. And then I can go back to my segment and change it to manufacturing again and apply that. And as a user who's focused on that, I'd see this manufacturing blog article. And so that's both an example of content targeting in Crafter and also a great example of non-visual content and where forms are useful. Okay, now we've created a page. Let's go in and look at it into some different channels here. So we're going to change the view, and we'll set that view up to be an iPhone or a smartphone, for example. And you can see here, I can take a look at that device. I can even edit in this mode if I need to change something. I can turn the phone on its side and work the same way. So it gives me a great preview for different devices, and these devices are pluggable. Here's another device, a tablet. And here you can see I can turn the tablet on its side as well. And here's a great example where we can really see how the paper responds to these different viewport sizes. So when a tablet is in landscape mode, the paper moves up into the banner, and when it's in portrait mode, it stacks. Now I've seen an example of visual editing and form-based editing. I'm going to show you one more style of editing supported by CrafterCMS, and that's bulk edit. So we're going to go up to the left-hand toolbar here, click on bulk edit. We're going to choose our content type, which is blog, and you've been introduced to that now. And here you can see all the fields of a blog in a spreadsheet style interface, and we can make changes here to many blogs at once. We can do find and replace, and this style editing lends itself to content editing that is best done in a tabular format. So you see we made a change here. We can see that it's green. Like I said, we could also do a find and replace. And it's not just text fields. You can also edit images and relationship style fields as well. So let's just edit this image, for example. We click on the field, click edit, and here you can see we have our image picker. This is connected to the proper data sources and so on. We can use that image picker fully to see a bigger preview and so on, and make changes if we like. Okay. Now we've made one change here. Let's go ahead and save it, and then we can exit this view. So very briefly for the developers and architects in the room, even though we've been making very visual edits throughout the course of the last few minutes here, all of the content is captured in a presentationless way. And Crafter very cleanly separates code, content, and presentation from one another. And that makes it possible for us to serve content in any format, whether that's visual like we're seeing here, and to serve it for any channel, and do so in a completely headless fashion. So to demonstrate that, we're going to click on Project Tools here, and we're going to go into the GraphQL API interface, which is just one of the APIs that we have. And I'm going to execute this query for gym name here. And you can see that we got back Real Vision X. I'm going to go back into preview and just add a simple exclamation point here. Let's go ahead and do that. And now we're going to go back into GraphQL and rerun the query, and we can see that is immediately updated here. Now, GraphQL is just one of our API interfaces, but we really like it because it gives you a good degree of control over the shape of your query. So for example, here, if I don't like gym name as my field, I can change it to company name and then re-execute the query. And now I've changed the shape of the response a little bit. Crafter has various APIs that are out of the box where we dictate the shape of the API. We have GraphQL, we have some degree of change. And then you can create your own REST APIs and control the shape of your API 100%. Okay, let's put our authoring hats back on and let's go back out to preview. I want to finish up by talking about some tools and so on. So what we're going to do is close this out. And you can see over here on the right-hand side, we have a Yoast plugin where we can see some of our SEO feedback. Here you can see we're getting some feedback. We need to make some changes here to make sure that this page is going to perform properly in SEO. Yoast is a plugin that you can install into any of your projects and get that kind of feedback. And it's great that you have that right next to your visual presentation. Okay, let's go ahead and close that up. And we also talked about workflow. So let's take a quick look at that. So over in the left-hand toolbar here, you'll see a specific workflow for campaigns. And you can see here that we've got a number of items on a Kanban board, and these actually map directly to a Trello board. And they are in fact connected. So I'm going to go ahead and change the background image here in Trello. So let's choose something a little digital here, like this background here. And we'll set that in Trello. And also I see here that SEO shows up a little late in the workflow. So I'm going to change that workflow and the order of it. So you can see here that we've made those changes. And now let's go back to Crafter Studio. And what we're going to see is that these items are going to reflect in Crafter Studio as well. Now, this is not an iframe into Trello. This is a full React-based implementation that uses Trello APIs. And so, for example, I can click on the item here and see elements linked in the Trello card, including this brief in Google Docs. This is a wonderful campaign design brief here. Don't steal my ideas. And I can see that exact same set of content, including the campaign page for demo that we're editing here. That's linked to the workflow. And by being linked to the workflow, this allows us to do some neat things. So for example, I can go into my Kanban board and pick up demo and move it into publish and drop it. And we're going to see that move in Trello as well, but it also kicks off a workflow. So we'll see that the demo page moved to an actual published state and then moved to completion. So there's a bit of automation tied to that specific step in the workflow. So this is really powerful stuff. And what I love about this is it allows teams to work both inside of Studio where it's natural for them if they're on the web team, but also for those folks that are part of our workflows, whether they are digital agencies who don't maybe have access to our network and our tools, or it may not be appropriate or reasonable or worthwhile to invite them into our web CMS. We can have them work with us in a tool like Trello or Workday or Asana or some other board, but that's very cleanly integrated with our CMS and our CMS team. We also have internal stakeholders like product teams and HR and legal and so on that oftentimes need to review content and provide feedback, but don't want to get into a CMS. And these folks are used to working with these style tools. And so this provides a great bridge that brings everybody together, allows them to work in a very seamless way. Again, in tools that they're familiar with. And that's the theme here. Let's just really double down on that idea that we don't want to put a lot of abstraction or introduce a lot of new learning. We want to leverage what people are used to and give them tools that feel natural. And I think both the visual editing and the workflow tools that we've seen today do exactly that. Okay, let's talk about some of the resources you can use if you are looking to get started with a migration from AEM to CrafterCMS. Our first resource is a migration package from us here at CrafterCMS. This is a consulting engagement to help you size and plan your migration, and you can use this service in conjunction with your internal team, additional crafter consulting, or in conjunction with one of our certified partners. If you're interested in the package, reach out to us at info@craftercms.org. If you're looking to evaluate CrafterCMS's fit for your use case, then you can start a CrafterCMS trial. You can find the try button in the top right-hand corner of CrafterCMS.com, which will take you directly to our trial system where you can start a trial without talking to anyone at CrafterCMS, and we'll give you full access to our Enterprise Edition and all of its capabilities. I also encourage you to check out the marketplace link on CrafterCMS.com. Here you're going to find links, descriptions, and screenshots of many of the plugins and package capabilities installable into your CrafterCMS installation to meet your specific business needs. Also on the site are valuable resources like links to our online training, case studies, white papers, and previously recorded webinars. You can also learn more about CrafterCMS and how it compares to other headless CMS solutions on our page at G2. This concludes our presentation for today. I want to thank you all for your time and attention. If you have any further questions, please reach out to us at info@craftercms.com. Have a great day and happy crafting.